Most gardeners assume the ground is always the best place for a plant. More soil should mean more room for roots, and more room for roots should mean a bigger harvest. That sounds logical. But for some edible plants, the ground creates the exact problems that hold them back. Heavy soil bends root crops. Underground runners invade nearby beds. Wet soil exposes fruit to rot and pests. Cold spring ground slows warm-season plants. And once a crop is planted, you can't move it when the weather changes. A container doesn't give a plant more space. It gives you more control. And for the right plant, control can matter more than space. Today, we're counting down 15 edible plants that can become easier, cleaner, or more productive when grown in containers. Each plant is ranked using 4 questions. How much does the container solve a real problem? How easy is the plant for a beginner? How much food can it produce in a small space? And how forgiving is it when conditions aren't perfect? For every plant, I'll also give you the minimum container it needs, a variety worth looking for, and the one mistake most likely to ruin the crop. Pay close attention to the top 3. One becomes far easier to control in a pot. Another keeps its fruit cleaner above the soil. And number 1 earns the top spot because a container solves nearly every common problem people have with it. Before we begin, remember this. These plants can still grow well in the ground. The point isn't that soil is bad. The point is that a container gives you control over soil, water, temperature, location, and root space. Number 15. Radishes. Radishes give beginners something every new gardener needs: a fast win. Some varieties can be ready in about a month, but speed isn't the main reason they belong in a container. Their edible root has to expand through the soil. If that soil is hard, rocky, or packed with clay, the root may stay small, split, or grow into an odd shape. In a container, you choose a loose, light mix without stones. You also don't need a deep pot. Around 6 inches can work for small round varieties, although a little more depth gives you extra room. Try Cherry Belle or French Breakfast. Sow the seeds directly, leave enough space between them, and keep the moisture consistent. The biggest mistake is waiting too long to harvest. An oversized radish can become woody, hollow, or unpleasantly hot. Pull one when the top reaches the expected size. If it looks good, harvest the rest soon after. Radishes rank at number 15 because they're easy in both beds and pots. The next crop rises higher because a container can prevent one of the most disappointing surprises in root gardening. Number 14. Carrots. You can spend weeks watching healthy green tops, pull the carrots, and discover twisted roots that look nothing like the seed packet. The problem is often below the surface. Carrots need soil that lets the root travel downward without hitting stones, dense clay, or compacted layers. A container lets you build that environment instead of hoping it already exists. Short varieties can grow in a pot around 10 to 12 inches deep. Longer carrots need more depth. For a shallow container, look for Parisian, Littlefinger, or another compact variety. Use a loose potting mix, not heavy garden soil by itself. Sow the seeds directly and keep the surface moist while they germinate. Then comes the part many gardeners avoid. You have to thin them. If the seedlings are crowded, the roots compete for space and stay small. It feels wasteful to remove healthy seedlings, but leaving all of them often wastes the whole crop. The biggest mistake is assuming more seedlings will produce more carrots. The right spacing produces the carrots you actually want to eat. Carrots are one of the clearest examples of a container fixing a soil problem, but the next plant is limited more by its shape than the soil beneath it. Number 13. Bush beans. Beans can produce a lot of food from a small footprint, but the variety matters. Pole beans want to climb and need a strong support system. Bush beans stay compact, mature quickly, and don't require a tall trellis. Use a pot at least 12 inches deep with plenty of drainage holes. A wider container lets you grow several plants while still leaving room for air to move between the leaves. Good varieties include Provider, Contender, and Mascot. Plant the seeds directly after the weather warms and place the container in strong sunlight. The biggest mistake is crowding the plants. A thick wall of leaves may look productive, but poor airflow can lead to disease and make harvesting harder. Give each plant enough room to form a full canopy, then harvest often. Picking ready pods encourages more production. Leaving mature pods too long may slow the plant down. Bush beans turn a small container into repeated harvests. The next crop needs even less room, and you may already have the beginning of it in your kitchen. Number 12. Green onions. Green onions are one of the most space-efficient foods you can grow. They don't need a large root zone. They can be planted fairly close together, and you can harvest them at several stages. A container around 6 inches deep works for many varieties, although a deeper pot holds moisture more consistently. You can grow them from seed, small onion sets, or sometimes from the white-rooted base left after cooking. But regrowing kitchen scraps usually gives you another round of green leaves, not the same vigorous plant you'd get from seed or a fresh transplant. For a reliable crop, look for a bunching onion such as Evergreen Hardy White. Keep the mix evenly moist and harvest the outer leaves or pull the whole plant when it reaches the size you want. The biggest mistake is letting water sit around the roots. Green onions like steady moisture, but a pot with no drainage can quickly become waterlogged. Make sure excess water can escape. Green onions rank higher than beans because they need less space and can stay close to the kitchen. The next plant also belongs near the kitchen, but it rewards patience rather than speed. Number 11. Parsley. Parsley is often treated like decoration, but in a container garden, one healthy plant can provide repeated harvests for months. And because the pot can sit near your door, you're more likely to use it while the leaves are fresh. Parsley has a deeper root system than its small leaves suggest, so choose a container around 10 to 12 inches deep. Curly parsley stays neat and compact. Flat-leaf parsley usually has a stronger flavor for cooking. The seeds can germinate slowly, which makes many beginners think they failed. Don't keep digging through the soil to check them. Keep the surface gently moist and give them time. Once the plant is established, harvest the outer stems near the base and leave the younger center growth in place. The biggest mistake is taking only the leaves from the ends of the stems. That leaves bare stems and doesn't encourage the clean new growth you want. Parsley reaches number 11 because it's compact, productive, and useful. Now we're entering the top 10. But first, there's one rule that matters more than the plant you choose. Container rule. A container isn't automatically easier than the ground. A pot gives you control, but it also makes you responsible for everything. The roots can't travel beyond the wall to find water. They can't escape a dense mix, and every time water drains from the bottom, some nutrients can leave with it. That means 3 things must be right. The container needs drainage. The growing mix must stay light enough for air and water to move through it. And the pot must be large enough for the mature plant, not just the seedling you bought. A tiny plant in a tiny pot may look fine in spring. By midsummer, it can need water several times a day. Bigger containers hold moisture more evenly and give roots a more stable environment. Keep that in mind as we move into the top 10. Number 10. Kale. Kale can keep feeding you long after a single harvest crop is finished. Instead of removing the entire plant, you can pick the older outer leaves and allow the center to keep growing. That harvesting style works well in containers. You can place the plant where you see it often, remove leaves at the right size, and move the pot if the weather gets too hot. Use a container at least 12 inches deep. One full-sized kale plant needs more room than a cluster of baby greens, so don't crowd several mature plants into one small pot. For compact growth, try dwarf blue curled. For tender leaves and striking color, red Russian is another useful choice. Kale handles cool weather well, but container soil can heat quickly in summer. If the leaves become tough or bitter, move the pot where it gets morning sun and some afternoon protection. The biggest mistake is waiting for every leaf to become enormous. Young and medium-sized leaves are often more tender, and harvesting the outer leaves regularly keeps the plant active. Kale ranks at number 10 because it gives a long harvest from a modest space. The next plant needs more heat and more room, but a container can give it exactly what cold spring soil can't. Number 9. Eggplant. Eggplant loves warmth, which is one reason it can perform so well in a container. Potting mix often warms faster than garden soil in spring, and you can move the plant to a protected spot during a cold night or strong wind. But eggplant isn't a small plant just because it started in a nursery pot. Give one plant at least 5 gallons of growing mix. Larger varieties need more space. Choose a compact type such as Patio Baby, Fairy Tale, or Little Finger. Eggplant also becomes top-heavy when it carries fruit, so add a stake or cage early. The biggest mistake is using a small container and trying to compensate with more water. A root-bound eggplant can wilt quickly, drop flowers, and struggle to support fruit. Water can't replace missing root space. Keep the moisture even and harvest while the skin is still glossy. When the skin becomes dull and the seeds harden, the fruit has usually stayed on too long. Eggplant ranks at number 9 because a movable pot helps create the warm, sheltered environment it prefers. The next crop is more controversial. It can grow in a container, but only if you understand what the container is actually improving. Number 8. Potatoes. Potatoes don't necessarily produce more just because they're planted in a bag or pot. Their real container advantage is control and harvest convenience. In garden soil, digging can damage the tubers. In a container, you can empty the mix and search through it with your hands. Use a large container or grow bag with good drainage. 10 gallons is a practical starting point, although larger containers hold moisture more evenly. Choose compact or early varieties, and start with certified seed potatoes rather than grocery store potatoes. As the stems grow, add more mix around them, but don't bury every leaf at once. The biggest mistake is believing endless layers of soil will create endless layers of potatoes. The plant still needs healthy leaves above the surface to capture energy. Adding too much mix too quickly can weaken it. The other challenge is water. A large potato plant can drink heavily, but waterlogged soil can damage the crop. Aim for consistent moisture without turning the container into mud. Potatoes rank at number 8 because the container makes management and harvest easier, not because a pot is guaranteed to outperform every garden bed. The next plant offers a clearer advantage. When summer heat arrives, you can move it before the crop turns bitter. Number 7. Lettuce. Lettuce is one of the best crops for anyone who wants a harvest without waiting all season. It has shallow roots, grows quickly, and many leaf varieties can be harvested more than once. A wide container is more valuable than an extremely deep one. Around 6 to 8 inches can be enough for leaf lettuce, as long as the pot drains well and doesn't dry out constantly. Look for black-seeded Simpson, salad bowl, or a cut-and-return mix. Sow a small amount every couple of weeks instead of planting the entire packet at once. That gives you a longer harvest, rather than one overwhelming wave. The container advantage becomes obvious when temperatures rise. Lettuce prefers cooler conditions. If the pot sits in intense afternoon sun, the plant may become bitter or begin producing a flower stalk. Because the crop is mobile, you can give it morning sun and afternoon shade. The biggest mistake is waiting for every plant to form a perfect grocery store head. With leaf lettuce, you can begin taking outer leaves while the center keeps growing. Lettuce reaches number 7 because it gives a fast reward, fits shallow spaces, and can be moved to extend the harvest. The next crop also benefits from warmth, but it needs much more root room than most people give it. Number 6. Peppers. A pepper plant in the right container can become one of the most productive plants on a patio. The pot warms quickly in the sun, the plant can be moved away from cold wind, and some gardeners even move peppers into protection to extend the season. But there's a major difference between a pepper growing in a nursery pot and a pepper expected to carry a full crop. Give one plant at least a 5-gallon container. Larger varieties and hotter climates may need more. Compact choices such as lunchbox peppers, basket of fire, or patio varieties work well in small spaces. Place the plant in strong sunlight and keep the moisture consistent. The biggest mistake is allowing the pot to swing from completely dry to heavily soaked. That stress can cause flowers to drop and may reduce fruit quality. A larger container makes those swings less severe. Support the plant before the branches become heavy. A small stake placed early is easier than a rescue system added after a branch cracks. Peppers rank at number 6 because they combine high value, long production, and the warmer environment of a container. Now we've reached the top 5. From this point forward, the container solves a specific problem that commonly reduces the harvest. Number 5 uses the one direction most small gardens forget. Up. Number 5. Cucumbers. Cucumbers can consume a surprising amount of garden space when their vines spread across the ground. In a container, the goal isn't to keep the plant small. The goal is to redirect it vertically. Choose a compact bush variety or one known to perform well in containers. Patio Snacker, Bush Champion, and Space Master are good examples. Use at least 5 gallons of mix for one plant and place a sturdy trellis in the pot before the vine becomes difficult to handle. Training the vine upward keeps the fruit easier to see, improves airflow, and keeps cucumbers away from wet soil. But it also creates one hidden problem. The container can become top-heavy, so choose a stable pot and secure the trellis if needed. The biggest mistake is irregular watering. Cucumbers grow quickly and contain a lot of water. When a small pot dries out, the plant can become stressed fast, and the fruit may become misshapen or bitter. Check the soil often during hot weather. Cucumbers enter the top 5 because a container and trellis turn a sprawling crop into a vertical one. The next plant uses the same strategy but can keep producing much longer. Number 4. Cherry tomatoes. Tomatoes are often called perfect container plants, but only when the variety and the pot match. A full-sized, indeterminate tomato can quickly outgrow a small patio container. It may survive, but survival isn't the same as a satisfying harvest. For easier container growing, choose a compact determinate or patio variety, such as Tiny Tim, Patio Choice Yellow, Red Robin, or another type bred for limited space. Use a large pot. 5 gallons is a bare minimum for many compact tomatoes, and a larger container gives the roots more stable moisture and temperature. Install a cage or support at planting time. Cherry tomatoes rank high because they produce many fruits over a long period, and the container keeps them close enough to monitor. You can notice wilt early, see when fruit is ready, protect the plant from cold, and place it in the strongest sunlight available. The biggest mistake is inconsistent watering. When the mix repeatedly becomes extremely dry and then extremely wet, the fruit may crack. A small pot makes that cycle happen even faster. Water deeply, let the excess escape, and check the soil instead of following a rigid calendar. Cherry tomatoes reach number 4 because they can turn a sunny patio into a productive garden. But the next plant gains something tomatoes don't. A container physically separates its fruit from the ground. Number 3. Strawberries. A ripe strawberry sitting on damp soil is an invitation. Slugs can find it. Rot can begin where the fruit touches the surface. Soil can splash onto it, and runners can spread where you don't want them. A container changes that relationship. The fruit can hang over the edge, away from wet soil and easier to inspect. The pot can also be raised, moved, or protected when birds discover the crop. Choose a container with enough surface area for the crowns and good drainage. Strawberry pots, hanging baskets, window boxes, and wide planters can all work. Day-neutral varieties such as Seascape, Albion, or TriStar can produce over a longer period in suitable conditions. June-bearing varieties may give a larger harvest in a shorter window. Don't bury the crown. The center of the plant should sit at the soil surface. The biggest mistake is planting too many strawberries in one small container. Crowding creates competition for water, nutrients, and light. Remove unwanted runners if your goal is fruit production, because the plant uses energy to create them. Strawberries rank at number 3 because the container keeps the fruit cleaner, makes pests easier to notice, and gives you more control over runners. Number 2 ranks even higher because the container doesn't just improve the plant, it protects the rest of your garden from it. Number 2. Mint. Mint is easy to grow. Sometimes it's too easy. Plant it directly in a garden bed, and underground stems can travel far beyond the spot you chose. New shoots appear nearby, then farther away, and pulling the visible leaves doesn't remove the network below. That's why mint belongs in a container. The pot creates a boundary around the roots and underground stems. You still get vigorous growth and repeated harvests, but the plant can't quietly claim the rest of the garden. Use a container around 12 inches wide for one plant, with drainage holes and enough weight to stay stable. Peppermint and spearmint are familiar choices. Chocolate mint, apple mint, and other flavored varieties can also be useful. Keep different varieties in separate pots so they don't become tangled and difficult to identify. Mint can tolerate some shade, especially in hot climates, although it still needs enough light to stay dense and flavorful. Harvest by cutting stems just above a set of leaves. Regular cutting encourages branching and keeps the plant from becoming tall and sparse. The biggest mistake is setting a pot of mint directly on open soil and assuming it's fully contained. Roots or stems can escape through drainage holes and establish below. Place the pot on a hard surface or inspect the bottom regularly. Mint reaches number 2 because the container solves its greatest weakness almost completely. But number 1 wins for a different reason. It's used constantly, responds quickly to harvesting, benefits from warm container soil, and lets you control the 2 things most likely to kill it. Cold and excess water. Number 1. Basil. Basil earns the number 1 spot because a container matches the way most people actually use it. You don't want basil hidden at the far end of a garden. You want it close to the kitchen, where you can cut a handful for pasta, salad, soup, or sauce. That frequent harvesting isn't only convenient, it helps shape the plant. When you cut basil just above a pair of leaves, it can branch from that point and become fuller. Basil also prefers warmth and dislikes sitting in cold, waterlogged soil. A container warms more quickly, drains more predictably when the pot and mix are chosen correctly, and can be moved to shelter during cold nights. Use a pot at least 8 to 10 inches deep for one plant. A larger container holds moisture more consistently and supports a fuller root system. Genovese basil is the classic choice for pesto. Thai basil has a different flavor and handles heat well. Compact varieties such as Spicy Globe fit in very small spaces. Place the pot where it receives generous sunlight, but watch it during extreme heat, because container soil can dry quickly. The biggest mistake is picking individual leaves from random places and allowing the plant to flower too early. Once basil puts significant energy into flowers and seeds, leaf production can slow and the flavor may change. Pinch the growing tips above a pair of leaves and remove flower buds when your goal is continued leaf production. The second major mistake is giving it too much water. Don't water simply because the surface looks dry. Check below the surface, water thoroughly when needed, let the excess drain, And never leave the roots sitting in a sealed pot of water. Basil takes number 1 because the container improves nearly every part of the experience. It keeps the plant near the kitchen, gives you control over drainage, creates the warmth basil prefers, and lets you protect it when the weather changes. It may not produce the heaviest harvest on this list, but it gives one of the highest returns in flavor, convenience, and usefulness for the space it occupies. So, should you pull every vegetable out of the ground and move it into a pot? No. A healthy garden bed can outperform a container for many crops because the soil volume is larger, the roots have more room, and moisture changes more slowly. Containers aren't magic, they're tools for control. They work best when the crop has a problem the container can actually solve. For carrots and radishes, the container gives you loose soil without stones. For lettuce, kale, peppers, eggplant, and basil, it lets you respond to temperature and sunlight. For cucumbers and cherry tomatoes, it turns a small footprint into vertical production. For strawberries, it lifts the fruit away from wet ground. And for mint, it keeps one aggressive plant from becoming an entire garden problem. If you're new to container gardening, don't begin by buying 15 pots. Start with 3. Choose one crop for a fast reward, such as radishes or leaf lettuce. Choose one crop that can produce over a longer season, such as a compact cherry tomato or pepper. Then choose one herb you already use every week, such as basil, parsley, green onion, or mint. That combination gives you an early harvest, a long harvest, and something useful close to the kitchen. And remember the 3 rules that decide whether a container succeeds. Use a pot with drainage, match the container size to the mature plant, and check the soil instead of watering only by the calendar. A small garden isn't automatically a limited garden. When every container has a purpose, even a patio, balcony, porch, or front step can produce real food. The question is no longer whether you have enough ground. The better question is this: which problem can the right container solve for you first?